No vaccine's ever been proven safe.
Are extremely effective in reducing infections by 90% in fully vaccinated people.
I would urge you to be vaccinated in the strongest possible terms.
And it's clear the public does need reassurance.
What you need in order for people to take vaccines, you need trust.
All of us are ready for this pandemic to be behind us, and I don't think that's going to happen without a vaccine.
I will absolutely refuse to take a coronavirus vaccine.
It is no exaggeration to say that the country, if not the entire world right now, is polarized when it comes to how we've responded to COVID and the whole idea of the vaccine. Now, the United States has opened up the vaccine to allow anyone over the age of 16 to get the vaccine for themselves. And for the first time, I'm actually having to consider my relationship to the vaccine. What do I think is best for me? How do I want to respond to this entire thing? And so what you're going to watch right now is me really just trying to wrap my mind around this entire thing. What is my duty to myself, to my family, to the community around me at large? I'm not trying to get you to do anything in particular. Instead, I'm just trying to listen and to understand where so many of my friends and family, people that I respect, I'm trying to understand and listen to where they are today. This is I'm Listening. So talk to me about how you first thought about the idea of a vaccine. It came across your radar maybe last year, a couple months ago or whatever. What were your gut reactions to the idea?
I was really excited about the idea of a vaccine. I recognized that there would be risks involved, but there was already so much risk involved with COVID that I felt a lot of relief.
When they first came out with their numbers and how it was 98% effective, I trusted them. And I was eagerly waiting for my shot. Now, I still look at it. I see that the Johnson & Johnson shot isn't as good. Issues there. It looks like they're going to be able to fix it. So, you know, I still look at the science and I'm still wary, especially now that my time is coming to get my shot. I want to have the best information so I can make the best decision and get the right one.
When it comes to COVID vaccine information, there's so much out there. And you have these professionals, medical professionals and scientists that tell you it's the worst thing ever. And then you have scientists and biologists and medical professionals that say it's the best thing ever.
In the beginning, it seemed to make sense to me. That, okay, you put like a little bit in, so you build a resistance to it.
I think Morgan and I both have been a little bit hesitant or cautious or even concerned with certain aspects of the way the United States and perhaps the world has gone about responding to COVID.
We just received so many promises and then broken promises, or, you know, hopes and then dashed hopes, that I thought, okay, well, this is probably one of those as well.
Or just more wondering what society was going to do with the vaccine. Just because I knew how much they were pushing, you know, like masks and closures and stuff like that. I was a little bit hesitant that they were going to kind of push like mandatory vaccines. So that made me a little bit hesitant personally.
This idea of the vaccine is kind of nerve-wracking for me as well as other people that I know.
My first response was, I don't know if I'm going to get it. It was doubt.
I didn't hear it as a threat. To the contrary, I actually heard it as a step in the right direction.
I think initially it was really this glimmer of hope.
I had an even dose of trepidation and very enthusiastic excitement.
I didn't really have very many second thoughts on getting the vaccine.
I travel enough and I'm in enough groups that it would be irresponsible of me to not be vaccinated.
There's the option of, me potentially getting people sick or, having a vaccine.
I felt like it was almost kind of a civic duty, like a social responsibility to get the vaccine, given the state of the world right now.
It seemed like it was news that was much needed, especially in a climate where there was not a lot of good news going on. And there was just a lot of social injustice, and then there was just political polarization. economic turmoil, and then someone said, "Yo, there's a vaccine coming through." It's like, okay, this is great. This is good news.
And if it is available to you and you are able to get it, I kind of feel like there's a little bit of a responsibility to do that for not only your own safety, but for the safety of the people that you are going to be interacting with.
I am a social butterfly. My relationships are really important to me. So I was always willing to get vaccinated. But also, one of my favorite things about being a progressive Christian is that I am permitted in that space to really engage with my intellect on top of my faith. So obviously, I noticed a lot of people in faith spaces I used to be a part of calling the vaccine the mark of the beast or warning against health issues and all these different things that got very conspiratorial. But for me, engaging with that intellectual response to things means just hunkering down and doing research.
My mom works for a clinical research company. So literally the people who develop these vaccines, you sign up for trials. Like, I know that side of it. I've been through medical studies myself and that kind of thing. So by the time that you get a vaccine, yes, there can be problems, and we've seen some, like with the Johnson & Johnson like blood clotting thing. But to me, like, the risks versus the potential of, being vaccinated, done deal. I'll do it.
Some of the reservations that I maybe had were just knowing that this vaccine was brand new, and you're being asked to, take a vaccine or offered a vaccine that has not been tested long term.
I mean, I'm not a scientist, so and I'm an impatient person. So I'm one of those people who's like, okay, like how hard can that be?
With COVID and everything coming out, it was just like, I know for us as adults, we've never gotten the flu vaccine shot, which is kind of recommended yearly. Never gotten it, never gotten the flu. And if I have as an adult, it's been, a week-long sickness and I recover. And so for me, that's kind of what I was comparing it to. So I was like, why would I get the vaccine if I feel like if I get it, I'll recover pretty quickly?
I'm curious how COVID has impacted you and your closer circle of family and or friends. How many people do you know, or even you yourselves, I don't know the answer to this question, have contracted COVID? And those who have contracted COVID, what has the experience generally been about? Have you had any losses of life within your network? Just how has COVID impacted you guys? Less from like, oh, we got to wear a mask and we got to social distance, but how's it affected you as a family?
As far as how COVID has affected our family and immediate, close friends and whatnot, I think that we've been incredibly blessed. I will just say that. We have not lost anyone close to us.
Because we know some people have experienced loved ones close to them that have died.
Yeah.
Don't want to make light of that at all. But yeah, for us, it has not affected us in significant ways, and perhaps that's a reason that maybe we're a little bit more on the side, erring more strongly on one side.
Yeah, some people seem to get a really low dose of it, and they're the lucky ones. I had it pretty bad, so I knew immediately that I had it. I was at work and I started to feel different than I'd ever felt before. It's really hard to explain. It's a little bit of everything all at once, dizziness, just out of nowhere, nauseous, feeling like I was going to faint. I went to my boss and I'm like, dude, I hate to tell you, I think I got COVID. And I went and got tested. A few days later, it came back. But at that point, there was no doubt for me.
It was everything that people said it was. It was vomiting, it was diarrhea, it was nausea, it was loss of taste and smell, body aches, body chills, extreme fatigue, you name it, we got it. And I got the same thing about 5 days after her. I caught it from her. And then we were social distancing from each other and quarantining. So it was a very difficult month, if you will, in the Parr household.
I don't know how we haven't had it, honestly. It's pretty crazy. We were actually in the house with Braden's family the day before they tested positive, and they were actually starting to cough and stuff when we were there. And we kind of just thought it was allergies, but we ended up leaving anyway. And then finding out, yes, they all tested positive, and there were like 10 people there, and they all got it, and somehow me, Brayden, and our baby, our 1-year-old baby, didn't get it. So I have no idea how that works.
I've taken measures. So, for instance, with my mother, when I visited my mother at the end of the year for the holidays, I stayed inside for 3 weeks with my mother in order to make sure that exposure was not a thing, because she was highly concerned. And so it's with that in mind that I think, just as part and parcel of being part of the greater community, to do my part. And at least for me in my house, my part is to get vaccinated.
My colleagues, many of them opted to work from home if they could. We had a building full of people that like 50% or more were just gone. It was just like an empty building where we were operating. Like we had to go into work every day, but the students didn't have to go into work every day. And some of the teachers didn't either, but in my role, I did have to go in every day. And so it was interesting to see who could work from home and who couldn't.
As someone that works from home and pretty much, I live online, when it comes to my work, it has been a different experience for me related to COVID, because not a whole lot has changed.
My work has changed so much where, I interview people for a living, and I used to be able to be in their homes so easily. Sitting at the kitchen table, sitting on the couch across from them, and I miss that. But more than anything, like I don't want to feel like I'm a threat, you know. Will the vaccine like take that away? No. But like, can I help push the world out of this, hopefully, in participating? I hope so.
When it comes to how I'm navigating the vaccine or how I've navigated coronavirus in general with having a child, I have been very, very protective and vigilant about not having him in spaces that I didn't feel were safe. If I was going to be at a park where a lot of people were flagrantly walking around without masks, for example, I would be sure to be walking like super far away from them or avoid taking my son to those spaces at all. So I've just really cared about both of our health from that angle from day one.
One of the biggest concerns that I had was for my own kids. And let me just expound on that a little bit. It wasn't a concern that they would contract COVID or get COVID or become sick from COVID, but I think it was more the awareness of how the COVID, the environment surrounding COVID, and how our culture and society shifted so quickly, how that could play out in their mental health and their emotional health.
Week to week, we didn't know what we were going to do. We would be like, okay, we're in school this week. I wonder if we're going to be in school tomorrow. I wonder if how it's going to look. And it was really frustrating because I felt like there was no semblance of routine or schedule.
As it started looking like it's going to be much longer than a couple of weeks, my immediate sense was, when is there going to be a vaccine? And why is it going to take so long?
I wasn't down in the hospitals or anything like that when it was all really hitting heavily. But I know personally we had to go to the hospital a few weeks ago, and it was so chill. There was no one there. They were really laid back. Like all of the nurses and stuff were really laid back. And like, it really surprised me from what I was used to hearing on the news of like, do not go to the hospital, they are so overwhelmed, which I'm sure at points they have been overwhelmed. But yeah, it was super chill, and I was like, okay, this is a way different experience than I thought I was gonna have, because I was terrified to go because of the things that I had heard. So
what was your experience like in the decision-making process of getting a vaccine versus not? One example I have of vaccines as a child was that everyone in my community was getting chickenpox, and my grandmother, my mom, got chickenpox with her children when she was in her 20s, and my mom was really afraid that was going to happen to me. So she was bringing me over to neighbors' houses, and if anyone had chickenpox, she's like, give Timmy a hug Timmy. She was trying so hard to give me chickenpox so that I wouldn't have to endure it later, because it's supposed to be much worse when you're older, especially if you're getting it with your children and you're all sick together. So I have those memories of her trying to get me sick, which is such an interesting thing for a mother to do, but it was also in my best interest, and I understand that.
However, I don't know what year it was, but sometime after that, they had created a vaccine for chickenpox. So I'm vaccinated for chickenpox and I've never gotten them. So that to me is a perfect example of like a mother intention of being like, this seems like it's the wrong thing to do, but I feel it's the right thing to do. And when I was just navigating everything with my child, it was just be vigilant about masks, be aware of who I'm bringing him around, and then I'm not going to be one of the first couple thousand to vaccinate him. I'm sorry, I'm going to wait for trials and for other people to be taking their children because I feel I can do enough to protect him and have him around vaccinated people and be vaccinated myself. Those are all the protections I take to protect him from the virus. But then I'll be waiting and abstaining on the vaccine just to make sure that it's safe for his teeny tiny little body.
This was when we got our child, who is now 3, when we were considering for him whether to take vaccines or not. Then we started looking into what vaccines were, because both of us, we were, for as far as we had an opinion about it, we were pro-vaccine. We had all taken our vaccines, and but then now all of a sudden you're responsible for another human being, and then it's like, whoa, you don't want to mess something up. So we started looking into it and came to certain conclusions that that were very similar to when we started looking into the COVID vaccine specifically, is that we are personally not impressed with any of the data that they present to take it ourselves.
History has shown that these vaccinations do work. We don't have polio anymore. We don't have smallpox anymore. So I'm hoping that history repeats itself and we won't have COVID-19 anymore. But that's a kind of wait and see kind of thing, I think.
You just kind of see the like repercussions of even just one person being sick. And you just kind of see the trail of people that they have interacted with all day just kind of rippling out. And what a difference it could make if we were all vaccinated, and how that could just kind of stop that spread in its tracks.
You know, my wife and I are expecting our first kid in August, and that has obviously added something new into the equation. In terms of the vaccine for my wife and I, for her, things have been changing so much. At first it was definitely don't get it if you're pregnant. Now that has shifted and they're leaning more towards women who are pregnant getting it. We're still sort of undecided there. For me, I think my thought was, because of COVID, I haven't been able to attend any of her appointments in person at all. And so my first thought, just gut reaction, was, if I can be fully vaccinated by the time this baby comes, that really ups my chances of definitely being able to be there when she actually gives birth, and maybe even physically in person make it to a few appointments for the birth of our first child.
I would say that it is a mixture of being concerned about the health stuff, the FDA not even approving these vaccines, just kind of pushing them forward. They haven't been through the 7-year-long trials that they're supposed to go through. It's like there are a lot of concerns. We don't know what the long-term effects are. I know for me as a woman who is already struggling with fertility issues, who knows what it could cause? And who knows? It might not cause anything, but you just don't know. And that's concerning to me.
I'm not afraid of the virus personally, based off of my age group, the statistics surrounding people my age, based off of seeing my friends and family who have gotten it and recovered really well. I don't know. I'm not afraid of getting the virus, but I am more hesitant about the unknown of the vaccine and how it could affect me and fertility and my baby. And there's just a lot of unknown. I don't know. It's just so new. So
I was one of the first people in my building to get the vaccine. I think that a big part of that was I am young and I am relatively healthy. And so I felt like if there were going to be people who should go and get the vaccine when they're eligible, in case there are negative reactions, it would be better for me to get that negative reaction than maybe somebody who has a really severe underlying condition or is elderly and more vulnerable.
I've had several people in my family get it, and I'm very thankful. Friends have gotten it as well, and I'm thankful for that because thus far, I think there's a big conspiracy theory. Particularly, people think it's the mark of the beast and all this stuff, and the country's trying to control us, and I just think Christians, we need to be careful about getting involved in all these conspiracy theories and things like that. My mom has gotten the vaccine. My dad's gotten it. My friends have gotten it. My wife and I haven't gotten it yet, but we will eventually get our shots. I think we were a little bit uncomfortable at first because we wanted to kind of wait and see if there were any major side effects of this first dose and first round of vaccine shots.
I think the positives of the vaccine for me, I think that outweighs the personal concern that I had. But initially, for sure, I think there was a little bit of reservation just knowing that this vaccine had been hurried and rushed to market because of how intense the pandemic was. And so that's great. And that brought hope. But we also know that the vaccine has not been tested long term.
In so much as I'm able, I've checked in with those who have a lot more knowledge on these things than I do. And I trust them. And yeah, I counted the cost and went for it. I might feel sick for about 36 hours, but I'm a fairly healthy young chap. And hopefully don't suffer too many side effects, and hopefully it's the right thing to do.
I just don't have a piece of me that's like resistant to it. I have no moral hangups. I'm not super scared of side effects, even if I do get a little sick afterward. So for me, I'm thinking about, okay, would I rather risk the safety of others or myself? In my view, I would rather risk myself than risk others, because if I don't get vaccinated, if I don't kind of go toward this, it's not whether I'm worried about me myself getting sick. It's the people who have further health complications. It's the people who have a lower immune system than I do. That's what I'm worried about.
Me saying that I have doubt, I think the mainstream maybe portrays doubt as anti-vax versus people who are pro-vaccine. But there is this middle space where there are legitimate fears and worries and doubts about getting something that's so new and seemingly untested. And so I looked into the trials, I did all the research, I looked into that the vaccine itself had been in development in some form for 10 plus years. I looked into the trials in itself and how effective it was and the side effects. And so I think the education piece for me was crucially important in giving not 100% security, but certainly removing some of the doubt and boosting some confidence towards, I would say, 75, 80%.
I'm a youth pastor at my local church, and we are planning to do some mission trips for this coming summer. And my senior pastor and we kind of decided that unless and until kids were vaccinated, they would not be able to go on these mission trips. And so that's kind of there was an external factor there. My wife's family, she has older grandparents, and so we wanted to make sure that we are all safe for their sake. They're in their 90s, and so there's a lot of traffic back and forth going to see them and stuff, and so we want to be able to see them and then for them to see us. So we wanted to make so we told the story that we told ourselves was we want to do whatever we can to make sure that happens.
As an individual, like I said, you decide what's best for you, but you also look at it in the context of how that fits into the society. Does that mean that whatever society says you need to go with? No, absolutely not. Everyone has their own choice. And one thing that I recommend is, I'm a biologist. I have a degree in biology, a degree in neurobiology. And what I will tell you is this: don't trust my words. Don't listen to what I have to say, and don't listen to what some other expert has to say and just take that as this is what you should do. Do your own research. If you don't understand how the vaccine works, find out how the vaccine works. If you don't understand what's in the vaccine, find out what's in the vaccine and what the effects are of those things.
Working with my client load, which is not a massive amount of people by any means, but it is such an intimate look at people's lives. it's so clear to me that across my client load, at least, and I'm going to extrapolate to the rest of us, like, no one is doing well. And like, this is so hard. And so I think some of my thinking around the vaccine is that anything that can help us get back to being able to do relationships in a way that is actual human to human contact is going to be beneficial. We're not through it yet. Like, we're still in the midst of trauma, actively experiencing trauma. And, after we stop actively experiencing trauma, there's going to be a phase of where things are going to get worse before they get better. That's the way trauma works. And so we're not through the woods yet, but I think the more that we can speed that up and then get us, all together in relationships so that we can be relational in the presence of other people, that will help with, this upcoming, we're already in a mental health crisis, but this upcoming mental health crisis that's going to happen once things lighten up a little bit more.
I'm curious about life after getting the vaccine, and I guess more pointedly, how has getting the vaccine impacted or shifted your emotional and or mental health?
Since getting the vaccine, one of the things that has been nice is just being able to kind of mention that I have been vaccinated to people as just kind of a way to ease their minds if they were worried about getting together with me. Because that's always like a difficulty when you're like asking someone if they want to meet up. Well, how sensitive are they? We don't really know. Like, am I more sensitive than them? Are they more sensitive than me? And always navigating that when you meet up with someone and getting together is always very challenging because you don't know where people's comfort levels are. And so it's nice when I'm, asking someone if they want to hang out, get together, to be just like, oh, and by the way, I'm vaccinated.
I saw a meme online. My first thing, a side effect was I couldn't stop talking about it. But absolutely, there is this almost tangible sense of relief and comfort and peace when I go to visit my patients, and especially going home to my wife and to my daughter.
There is a sense in our city and in our general community that we all have more duty to one another to take care of each other because we can't avoid one another, and that's definitely how I feel in getting the vaccine. That, while I might have maybe a few misgivings or whatever it might be, there's more than just me, and there's more than even just me and my family to consider here. There's a whole group of people that live in very close proximity. And I can also understand if you don't live in a context like that and you are not constantly running into people every day, and yet you're receiving all of this pressure. And I think at this point, that's all it's probably been for people, pressure, not a mandate. But you're receiving all this pressure that you have to get vaccinated or whatever it might be. I can see how that would feel irrelevant, perhaps, and I could see how that might feel like an attack. I totally get that.
Like, in your mind, as you're thinking about the reservations, the fears of an untested vaccine affecting you or your family, your kids, people are saying things like, oh, I'm skeptical or I have reservations. In your mind, like, what do those reservations look like? What is the thing that you're afraid of?
I think there's maybe 5 to 10% of doubt as to like, okay, once I take this shot, it's in my system. It's in me. Like I'm not gonna be able to undo it, right? So what if there is something? Now, I'm not worried about the mark of the beast and all that stuff because that's not biblically, that's just not even in the picture. That's just that's a misunderstanding of scripture. But in terms of maybe how this might affect my health down the road, there's still some part, but a very small part where I'm like, I don't know about that. But then I'm like, it's better than catching it again.
This thing has shown that the health ramifications from the vaccine aren't you're going to have some minor side effects, nothing serious. So even if you don't really necessarily consider this virus to be a real thing or something that you really need to worry about, I would just highly suggest that you look around at your family members and you say, even, if I'm wrong, it's not worth not getting the shot. So a little Pascal's wager there for an atheist that absolutely hates that. So
Yeah, there's probably nothing that would happen to make me get the COVID vaccine. But I do understand, like, if it was like a super deadly virus, where I felt like the risk of me not getting the vaccine was a lot worse than getting the virus, then I would probably get the vaccine, I guess.
I'm just empathizing. I'm putting on the hat of someone that actually believes the vaccine would be a violation of their health or of their children's health. And there's no way I could tell you that I don't care about that or I don't feel sympathy for that. On the other hand, it's frustrating and it's difficult to answer this question because I know the research that I've done, and I can't sit here and I don't want to sit here and argue with people about the validity of that. But a lot of times, people that are not believing in it, that are not wanting to take the vaccine, are getting information from some strange sources, some scientific experiments or documentation that actually isn't valid, or from articles that were passed around on Facebook, or from the pulpit on Sundays and what you're hearing. Even, some of the more wild theories that it's the mark of the beast. If that is why you're not getting the COVID vaccine, if that is why you're choosing not to protect your fellow mankind and protect the ones you love, I wrestle with these two different things because I empathize and I have so much sympathy for your perspective. And at the same time, I'm sort of begging people to double, triple, quadruple check where these ideas are coming from and make sure that they truly are valid.
Our biggest thing is that we believe people should have a choice if they want to take the vaccine, if they want to show their vaccine passport, that there should be freedoms in that area. For people deciding, for us deciding, do we want to take, in particular, the COVID-19 vaccine, we're not coming down super hard on vaccines like some people do, like some of our friends that we've talked to. I was talking to a friend yesterday who was like, if I have to quit my job because they're forcing me to get the vaccine, I'll quit my job and change careers. We're not, at least I'm not quite as intense as that. I do think that vaccines are, obviously there's good things coming out of them, but there's also risks involved, and so I want to be able to weigh the pros and cons.
All in all, though, I would say we believe it should be a person's choice. It should never be forced on anyone or anyone's child or anything.
And it is tricky, right? Because, people who are all about their own personal freedom, I get where they're coming from. However, I feel that you are actually taking away the freedom of people you might potentially infect, right? Like they should have the freedom to not be infected by you. So like, it really, you don't have either choice that is truly allowing everyone choice. Because say that there's a teacher of my kids, right, that doesn't want to get vaccinated. Okay, my kids now are forced to be around someone who is not vaccinated. They're forced to be around like potential sickness. So it's never, there's no answer on either side that allows complete freedom of choice.
I felt a lot of pressure to get a vaccine by maybe not my school in particular. I don't think my school put pressure on me to do that, but by society as a whole, I felt like there was a lot of expectation upon me as an educator, someone who works in a school, that I almost didn't really have a choice to really think about it because we are responsible for all of these children. We are responsible for people's childcare. I think there is a lot of pressure, and I wonder how, even if I felt that, not being very concerned about getting the vaccine, I just wonder how that might have impacted other people.
Is there a particular element of the conversation that you wish was more prominent? We see the media, we see what people are posting about it, the conversations that you're having with your friends. Do you feel like there's an overlooked or underrepresented perspective that you wish people would focus on a little bit more?
Yeah, I feel that the whole conversation is basically missing in society, because it's really the way I experience it. I've nowhere shared my opinion on the vaccine. And this is actually the first time I do that publicly, because I feel that there's such a lack of wanting to understand each other and no room for discussion. And probably there's people watching that would write me already off as like this anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorist. And I find that very both sad and tragic, and it's not healthy for us as a society to think so narrow-minded about people. So I wish there was more genuine conversation about this. Like, I respect people who take the vaccine. I respect people who don't take the vaccine. For me, I make a decision about what I put in my body, and I've done that based on, the research I can do. And if someone else doesn't do research and comes to an opinion, well, they make their own decision.
My recommendation would be evaluate how you are trying to interact with others, evaluate the risks that come along with that for you and also for them, and then make a decision on depending on what you have coming up and what you're planning on doing and how you're planning on interacting with the rest of the world. Use that to help you make your decision.
COVID-19 has really just put us all in what psychologists call a liminal space. A liminal space is that transit it's kind of like the transit space between where we are and where we need to be. We're kind of not necessarily at our origin, but we're also not at our destination yet, and so we are all in this kind of limbo space, right? But it's in this kind of spaces where we thrive, because it's a creative, it's a constraint, and as a creative, a creative person, that sometimes your best work comes within the presence of appropriate constraints. You're forced to work with what you have, and then you tend to create some really good things out of it. And so in some ways, there's this massive creative constraint that COVID-19 has placed on all our lives. And because of that, we've seen a lot of people do some really good things.
I think there has been so much mourning, and there has been such a sense of loss about us never going back to the way things were. And I've heard people say, whether it's on social media, could be text messages that people have sent me, that I can't wait to get back to normal. And I think there is this desire, as I'm hearing in conversations, to let's get back to what was. And that coupled with this mourning, as we mourn the loss of what we knew before COVID, I wish that we would have more conversations about this being a catalyst for change.
Well, I don't know if this is underrepresented or not, but I think so much of my curiosity revolves around, especially as Christians, and Christians who are told the greatest commandment is love. What love actually looks like. And in my mind, the way I see that is if we have the chance to protect ourselves and protect other people, then that feels like love to me. And so that big question of what does love actually look like, is one that I'm constantly sitting with. And I don't necessarily want to take a moral superiority stance by saying that people who get vaccinated love and those who don't love. I know it's so much more complex than that. There is genuine curiosity there, though. What does love look like if not getting vaccinated?